Quantum computing comes with advantages, but also its threats. For example, data security. I'm sure you have heard about the risk that they pose because they are able to break most of the standard encryption methods used. And then this is a big thing.
Welcome everyone to a new episode of The Blunt Dollar. Today's guest is a man who straddles two universes, one built on theoretical physics, the other on financial markets. Oswaldo Zapata holds a PhD in string theory, has conducted research at institutions like the Albert Einstein Institute and the London School of Economics, and now spends his time advising financial firms on one of the most misunderstood forces coming for the industry, quantum computing.
So quantum mechanics is unavoidable. Honestly, technically speaking, you need quantum computers in order to solve these problems. In quantum computing, there are some algorithms which help you solve these problems faster, theoretically, and more accurately. So the expectation is that you can solve these problems with larger quantum computers. But there is no real practical application of commercial use today for those algorithms.
This is The Blunt Dollar with Ignacio Ramirez. Quick disclaimer, the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are those of the speakers and do not constitute financial investment or legal advice. This content is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be relied upon as a substitute for professional advice. Always do your own research and consult a qualified advisor before making any financial decisions. All investments involve risk, including the potential loss of capital. And now, let's get started with the episode. Welcome everyone to a new episode of The Blunt Dollar. Today's guest is a man who straddles two universes, one built on theoretical physics, the other on financial markets. Oswaldo Zapata holds a PhD in string theory, has conducted research at institutions like the Albert Einstein Institute and the London School of Economics, and now spends his time advising financial firms on one of the most misunderstood forces coming for the industry, quantum computing. If you think quantum is still sci-fi, think again. Oswaldo believes we're 5 to 10 years away from a ChatGPT moment in quantum tech when its capabilities leap from labs and one papers into the beating heart of finance. But he's no cheerleader. In fact, he's one of the loudest skeptics on quantum hype. In this episode, we unpack the difference between scientific promise and speculative nonsense. Why most quants don't care about quantum and what actually matters for portfolio managers, risk officers, and technologies trying to prepare in finance for what's coming. We'll also dive into Oswaldo's intellectual rebellion against academia, his philosophy of don't sell what they don't want, and what the quantum world can teach us about uncertainty, decision-making, and truth itself. Oswaldo, I'm incredibly excited to have you on the show. This is very niche topic, but clearly one that is gathering a lot of attention. So welcome to The Blunt Dollar.
Yeah, thank you, Ignacio. It's nice to be here with you. Thank you. Thank you, really.
So I always start my conversations with the same question. Tell us a bit about yourself and what is it that you're doing today?
Well, listen, I finished my PhD in theoretical physics, as you said, almost 20 years ago. I mean, more than 20 years ago, in fact. I did string theory, then I did some research in institutions like Albert Einstein Institute, International Center of Theoretical Physics, and so on. So, when I finished my PhD, one of the options I had as, like everybody who finishes a technical career, physics, math, computer science, is to move to finance. Mm-hmm. This is what most of my friends did. I'm a stubborn guy, and then I said, no, I want to continue doing physics. I want to become the next Hawking, Einstein something. And then I did that, but I always kept in mind finance. In fact, I tried several times. And then I moved back to physics. And then a couple of years ago, around 7 years ago, I was teaching online students physics, math, computer science, this sort of technical subjects. And then I had a couple of students who wanted to know about quantum computing. So since I know about quantum mechanics, all the technical stuff, I then started learning about that. This took me a couple of months. And then I wrote hundreds of pages about the subject. And then I said, okay, let's finally jump to finance and then bring these two subjects together. So this is what I'm doing now. I mostly educate finance professionals about the implications of quantum computing for the
Mhm.
industry, from cryptography to acceleration of computational processes to more down to earth real business opportunities they can get in the field.
Mhm. You said something interesting at the beginning, that most of your friends, whilst you were in university and the academic world,
Mm.
pivoted towards finance. Is that a trend that is common, and why so? I mean, is it because of the strong technical and programming background, or because there's no money in academia and there's more money in finance? What are the
The
reasons?
two, the two are, honestly, are the reasons. The first time I heard about that was in the 90s while I was at university. In fact, there was a friend of mine who was also interested in string theory, cosmology, this sort of technical physics stuff. And then he told me about econophysics. At the time, this was something new, and then many physics students were already considering moving to finance in that field called econophysics, right?
Hmm.
So this is, of course, because of the technical background we have, computer skills, these sort of things, and then also the abstraction, right? And then in 2005, when I finished my PhD, so in fact, I don't think it was still called like econophysics, but more like quants, real quants, people from physics and math, they were moving to finance. Many of them, and when I'm saying many, it's like I think we're like 15 people doing the doctorate. I think 10
Hmm.
of them moved to finance. So they are still in finance, and they have been doing finance for 20 years. And today they are quants or working in financial institutions. So it's very common. Honestly, it's not
Hmm.
something. It's very very common because of the technical skills, but also because in academia and in string theory, when it's very theoretical, there is not so many
Sure.
options. It's very competitive. You find real
Mm.
geniuses there doing these difficult subjects. So as soon as you are not there, so yeah, finance is one of the options.
Okay.
It's
Interesting.
very common. Yeah.
So, okay, so what our listeners don't know is that this is not the first time, but the second time that we're
Mm.
recording this episode with Osvaldo. We gave it a
Yeah.
first shot, but it was a bit too technical, so we decided to do it
Yeah.
again. Dumb it down for people that are a little bit less smart, like myself.
I'll
And
try this. This is also technical. Yeah.
so let's start to get into the nitty gritty of the conversation.
Mm.
Quantum computing, or can you start by explaining for people that are not physicists
Mm.
what is this thing about in plain vanilla English?
Okay. Yeah.
And
So
quantum
quantum
physics, really.
computing. Yeah. Let me tell you about quantum computing. Okay. So quantum computing are a new sort of computers, right? Aim at solving problems as normal computers. Just that the physics they use is quantum mechanics. That's it. For finance professionals, in fact, they should only care about the practical use of these machines, right? It's like a normal machine, the ones we're using now, right?
Mhm.
You don't know how it works. Most people don't know how it works. In fact, I don't know how they work. I know more about quantum computers than classical computers, right? So, but I use them every day, and that's how finance professionals should approach this, right? From the utilitarian point of view, let's use them. How they can change my business, my career, my organization, and then this is really so because when you go to technical, things can get really complicated, right? We spend years and years and years with physicists studying quantum mechanics, right? So and this is not the path I see for finance professionals. It's more practical. These are the steps, right? This is what you have to learn. This is what you should forget about, and then just move to practical applications in finance.
So, what is it? What is quantum physics? Why is everyone talking about it?
Exactly. So here's the thing: quantum computers, as I said, is quantum, which is physics, right? Quantum mechanics, and it's computers. This means computer science. These are two subjects by themselves, which are very complicated, very difficult to understand. You spend all your career doing any of these two subjects. So when you combine the two, right, you have to learn about quantum, about a computer science. This is the basic idea. When you have a normal computer, right? You have some electricity entering a circuit. It computes whatever you want to compute, like for example, 3 times 5, say something, okay? And as output, you will get the result, 15, okay? Sometimes problems are very difficult, so you cannot not do them with a very basic computers, right? For example, suppose, when you had these old computers that you wanted to, for example, play a game, right? But it was so slow because the processors were old processors. So you had to buy the new computer, right? So for example, let's say you want to design something very complicated and then you try to do it with a cheap computer. You will not be able because the program asks, or the process, what you want to compute, asks too much from the computer. And the computer is too basic. So you need to buy, for example, the last Mac computer. Okay? This is the thing. Sometimes the process is more complicated. So you still need more supercomputers like the ones Google has. Okay? So quantum computers are computers that can solve problems which these computers, the super classical computers, cannot solve. Okay? So the physics is different, but the aim at the end is the same. You want to solve problems with these machines. Okay?
Mhm.
So instead of having your classical computer, and then you have electricity coming into the computer, and then finding the solution at the end, what you have here are not classical circuits, like the ones when you open, these old radios. You can open, you see all these components, right? So let's say something similar. You open my phone, is similar, right? You see what is inside. So you have normal electric currents, these classical circuits, and the output. These new computers, these quantum computers, are different in the sense that this here is not a classical circuit like the ones we have just in front of us, but these are quantum circuits. Okay? Quantum circuits, as I said, don't try to say, to think too much. What is that? It's something that uses quantum mechanics to create something which looks like this.
Mhm.
Okay? That's it. Okay? But you say, okay, it's not classical. Inside, the things you have inside are quantum gates instead of classical gates, okay, which are used in normal standard
Mhm.
computer science. And then the things that enter, right, here the input are not electric currents, but so-called qubits, right? So you have here a quantum circuit, you have qubits that enter the quantum circuit, and then here at the end you have the results, right?
What is a
The, as
qubit for those of us that don't know?
Yeah, qubits are the analog of, suppose you have electric currents. These are quantum electric currents, if you want. These are currents which have the properties of quantum systems, right? That's it. So you have, instead of having a classical circuit, right, and electric currents, you have something which is completely quantum. Even the currents that you have here have quantum properties. Okay. For example, how can you build these quantum electric currents? That I call like that. Suppose you say, okay, how can I encode information in these quantum systems? For example, light, just electromagnetic waves, is light. Okay, and then you say there is a polarization. The light can be polarized vertically or horizontally, and I can use these two states of light, for example, to encode information, but in a quantum way, not in a classical way. So this is the thing, 30 years ago, all this quantum technology was unavailable. So it's something really recent. Okay, only for the last 15 years, 10 years, we really know how to encode information in quantum systems. Okay, that's the thing. You have different ways, different types of qubits. You have superconducting qubits, right? These, for example, the ones developed by IBM and Google. You have, as I said, the polarization of electromagnetic waves. You can also have ion trap ions. These are different quantum systems where you can encode information. That's honestly, that's the only thing you need to know. You have here the circuit, and then here you have the qubits, which are the similar to quantum electric currents that enter the circuit, and then at the end you have the result. The thing is that, as I said, the problems get too complicated, so complicated that the computers become too big. Okay, as I said, for example, you cannot do a nice graphic design with an old laptop. You need the last Mac computer, for example, right? So for other problems, you need bigger classical computers. And for other problems, even more complicated problems, you need machines which are even more powerful than these classical computers. And these are quantum computers, okay? Quantum systems that work as as computers. Okay, that's the difference.
So, I mean, if someone asks me then like a one-liner of what is quantum physics, it's just like a part of physics that instead of using traditional electric signals, it uses like these qubits as their most basic form or element, and we use that in order to make computations. Is that it, or I'm not understanding what you're trying to
Yeah,
tell me?
this is no, more or less. This what you said is quantum computing, not
Okay.
quantum physics, okay, or quantum mechanics. Quantum computing has quantum mechanics and computer science together, right? So
Okay.
quantum computing. So what you described there is a mix of quantum physics and quantum computing, let's say, right? So quantum physics, right? Quantum physics is a description of the small things, the subnuclear matter, if you want. Okay, so and that's something studied by physicists. Okay, that's what we physicists we studied at university, and then our career, revolves around that a lot. Okay, this is quantum physics. Computer scientists they build normal computers like the ones we have. Okay,
Mm,
here, right? So we bring these two things together, and
got
then
it.
we have new types of computers which
Yeah.
use not classical physics but computers which are built in the using
S-
quantum mechanics.
So when I hear you talk, I feel you're focusing a lot on quantum computers and not in quantum physics. Why are you so uh, skewed towards that?
Yeah, this is one of the things that I have realized, but not only me, is that there is a misconception that quantum computing is only for technical guys, like me, who studied 15-year physics, and now, they say, okay, these guys they really know what they are doing, but this is not true. Quantum computing is difficult, but the basics are not so difficult to understand really and start getting involved in the field. That's why I
Mm,
don't talk so much about quantum physics or about computer science, but most about the practical things that people can do with that. So that's why I always focus about quantum computing. I don't know if
mm,
you get the idea.
yeah.
So you don't need to go so deep. And for example, I know people who did the mistake to go and buy a book in quantum mechanics. And I say, forget it. This is too much. This will take you, maybe you will never understand. Okay, because you need a training, you need teachers, you need to spend hundreds, thousands of times studying that. Instead, if you go and then you study quantum computing, the basics, okay, you can really do something
Mm,
practical, for your business, for
okay.
example. Okay, or at least understand what is happening. That's why I focus more on quantum
Mm.
computing.
And so everyone seems to be talking about how this quantum will revolutionize finance.
Mhm.
Has it done anything yet? And what do you think are the biggest misconceptions about what this whole idea and field is going to impact finance? Hey there, quick favor to ask. If you enjoy the blunt dollar, the unfiltered takes, the stories, and the laughs, the easiest way to support the show is by tapping that subscribe button right now while you're listening. And here's my promise. If you do, I'll keep bringing you honest conversations, fresh perspectives, and the kind of finance talk that's engaging, insightful, and worth your time. Thanks so much for being here, and let's keep these great finance conversations going.
Yeah. So there are few areas, few topics which are very um, people are doing research on these topics today, really practical applications to finance. Okay, so let me go back a little bit about the complexity of the problems. Some problems
Mm,
I told you that can be very difficult, right? You cannot solve with my phone, my laptop, or even a supercomputer, right? These classicals that Google have, okay, has. So we need bigger computers. The other way is to build a quantum computer. I will give you an example because sometimes we forget how how technology has advanced in these last decades. The size the size of a transistor in 1947 when it was invented, was like this: 3 by 3 by 3, like that. Okay, like this. This was the size of a transistor. Okay, and this was, of course, big revolution. Today, a mobile phone has thousands, sorry, billions, okay, thousands of millions, I meant, okay, billions, billions of transistors, okay, so small, so small, so small, right? Of course, you cannot see them, right? They are very, 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 very small. So we pass from one transistor of this size to have billions, 10 billions of transistors here. If you would use, these transistors and put them together, 10,000 millions, 10 billions would be equivalent to 6 Olympic swimming pools full of transistors. Now you take all that and you put it in your pocket, in just a telephone, okay, a mobile phone. What happens? These problems, okay, can be solved by your mobile phone. Some of the problems you didn't even need more and more transistors, okay, more transistors. When you try to pack more transistors in small places, that's the realm of quantum mechanics. So you cannot avoid quantum mechanics. Okay, if the problems are too difficult, one option you have is to build the computer bigger and bigger and bigger, right? And for example, portfolio optimization, this example I will give you, can be so complicated that you need computers, classical computers of the size of the galaxy, let's say, right? Classical computers, right? Not microchips like 80 years ago, but these tiny microchips we have today, okay? These tiny, tiny transistors. So it's not viable, right? So you need really to solve that problem. This is called Moore's law, okay? He discovered this. Is one of the co-founders of Intel. He discovered in the 70s that the number of chips you can put in a microprocessor doubles every 2 years, right? And he discovered that by 2030, like in 5 years, around this time, the sizes will become so small, they will be so close one to each other that you need quantum mechanics. So quantum mechanics is unavoidable. Okay, honestly, technically speaking, you need quantum computers in order to solve these problems. Okay, so for example, portfolio optimization. What are the expectations at what we are doing today? Let's say you have let's not make it so big. Suppose you have 30 assets, right? And then you want to optimize your portfolio, right? These problems already are difficult, right? For classical computers. If you have hundreds, it's even more difficult. And then your approximation, your solutions are approximations, or it takes too much time to find them, right? So in quantum computing, there are some algorithms which help you solve these problems, right? Faster, theoretically, right? And more accurately, right? So the expectation is that you can solve these problems with larger quantum computers. However, today, the number of qubits, remember that qubits are these sort of electric, quantum electric currents that I talk here, no? That enter the circuit. So we need more, right? We need, for example, one for each asset, we need one of these qubits that I was talking about, right? And then we only have around 100, right? In fact, some experiments, they have been done with 5 to 10. So 5 to 10 assets correspond to 5 to 10 qubits, right? But then you have many problems. So what people are doing today is just research, right? Some projects, but there is no real practical application of commercial use today for those algorithms. Okay, so this is the thing. Okay, we are around, as I said, 100 qubits. In fact, they are only testing 5 to 10 assets, and then this is not viable yet. But it is expected that in the next years we'll really start seeing the first practical applications, for example, for portfolio optimization.
So which areas do you think are most prone to be disrupted by quantum computing? Is it going to be portfolio optimization, risk management, or something completely different?
Well, one of the because quantum computing comes with its advantages, but also its threats, right? To, for example, data security. I'm sure you have heard about the risk that they pose because they are able to break most of the standard encryption methods used, and then this is a big thing, Okay, I think people will start, and they are already doing that. They're trying to protect about this possibility of quantum computers breaking encryption methods. This is again, of course, this is related to the power that quantum computers have to compute
Hmm.
faster than classical computers. In simple words, here's the thing: when you have a message, right? You want to save it or you want to communicate with someone. This message, as everything in computer science, concerns zeros and ones, right? Maybe you know that, right? So this is the digital era, okay? Which is
Hmm.
not the quantum era; it's digital, zero and one, everything. So you take all these zeros and ones, you mix them, and then you send them. Okay? If someone is able to catch this message, right? This person will not be able to read the original message because they are scrambled, So you say it's impossible for that, no, for them doing that. However, the thing is that the way these messages are mixed, okay, and then you send them, they are difficult to decrypt, to decrypt by classical computers. But
Hmm.
quantum computers are much, much faster, so they will be able to do that in the near future. Okay, for example, if you send a message using Google or whatever, or you save your data, financial data in your system, and then you say if someone comes and tries to read what I have there, it's impossible for them. This will take them millions of years. But if this person has a quantum computer, he will be able to do it much faster, right? In matter of minutes, right? So the person can take this encrypted message and
Yeah.
say, let me try to decrypt it using these quantum computers. And these people are thinking that in the next 5 to 10 years, um, some governments or
Hmm.
institutions will be able to have the capability of decrypting all the messages, government, military, financial. This is what experts are saying today is the most urgent use for quantum computer. Try to protect the data we have and we're sending.
Got it. So encryption security is one of
Yeah.
the things that are most likely to be disrupted. And when it comes to investing, what would it be in your opinion?
Investing, how? I mean, you mean big institutions investing in quantum computing?
No, like the field of investing in financial markets. How are we going to use this? I mean, I work as a fixed income advisor. How am I going to
Mhm.
use quantum computing to make me become a better advisor and make better investments for my clients?
Yeah. Okay. That's more difficult to see. There are several ways how you can see quantum computing. For example, when people say quantum computing in finance, most of the time they think about the topics that quantum computing in the theoretical
Hmm.
um, perspective can help big institutions. Okay, so big institutions, of course, they have the resources. They can pay to access the quantum computers in the cloud or buy them sometimes and then hire a big team of researchers, do the computations, publish the papers, find collaborations. This is quantum computing in finance when you talk in these large terms, right? So I like also this question because this is what I like the most. So you have also quantum computing for financial professionals, a normal finance professional who wants to do something, what can he do with all this stuff, that is called quantum computing. Okay, in that case, it's more broad, and it's called the quantum ecosystem. Okay? It's not just, and this is a technical thing that I need to explain. Quantum, when people say quantum computing, is not just acceleration of computational processes because I see it difficult for most finance professionals. I think impossible for the near future, midterm future, to really use a quantum computer. Right? They're
Hmm.
extremely expensive. They will not be able to buy them, to use them in the cloud. Just toy models, yes, but not really something pickable. Right? So you have the quantum ecosystem. Quantum technologies consist of three different things. You have quantum computation, which is this what we were just talking about. And then you have also quantum communication. Right? Quantum communication has to do with this security of data, financial security, of or other data. So, and then you have also something called quantum sensing. Quantum sensing is another quantum technology, which is used, right? But it's not really related to finance, let's say. Okay, and then you say, what can a professional do with all this knowledge, right?
Mm-hmm.
You, for example, what can you do? Okay, so there are different things you can do with that. Okay, at this stage, since it's an emerging technology, and I always say, an emerging technology always comes with emerging opportunities, right? So of course, this must be discovered by each professional in finance, right? For example, you say, and these people that I know, okay, for example, say I did physics when I was young. I did this at university, and then I did finance, and then what can I do with that? At this stage, since the hardware is very still immature, right, not very developed, awareness is a big thing. Okay, you can participate, for example, in conferences and teach, be uh, be always learning about what is happening. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I know that some people, but this is not what I will do here. Some people invest in quantum technology, right? In the stock market, right? Because there are some companies which are in the stock market. They are public, but this is not what I recommend. It's not something that I do. It's more an open view of what is happening, right? And then in the ecosystem, and try to participate, organize conferences. I know, for example, people doing ethics, okay? Because this is a big thing, right? Ethics, or for example, regulations. People working in regulations, people working also in governance, right?
Mm-hmm.
Working in approving new laws. People, this is really people that study law, and now they are doing quantum computing, because they are looking for what is all this ecosystem and how can they be inserted there. For
Mm.
example, let's say you say, I want to take advantage of what SpaceX is doing, right? You don't need to learn rocket science, but there are a lot of things you can do. You can invest, right? But you can also, these are a big, 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 as I said, ecosystem, things that can be produced that many people can collaborate. I know of
Got it.
people in finance, for example, not only creating startups, but also advising companies about, how executives, how they can use quantum computing today.
Mm.
You know?
And what was the first time a financial institution asked for your help with quantum computing, and what did they want to know? Hey there, quick ad break. Do you work in the finance industry and have a genuinely interesting story to share? I'm always on the hunt for great guests who bring raw, unfiltered insights to the table. Or maybe you know someone with a story worth telling? Please put us in touch. You can reach out to me directly via LinkedIn. I'd love to hear from you. And now, back to the show.
Yeah, this comes from I was lucky because of I told my friends that studied with me finance, and of course they were always curious about quantum computing, right?
Mm.
This was more a general, exactly what I was saying. This was more an educational, because people are interested at this moment in time. People are interested, but they haven't gone too deep into the subject for many reasons, right? Not maybe because they like the technical skills. Because all my friends, of course, if I explain quantum computing, they will learn that in a week, everything, right? But it's more because of they're busy, the budget, these sort of things. So, for example, in this case, my friends, they were just interested in giving talks, right, to the teams, okay, and of course for themselves, how can we get aware of what is happening and how this will impact in our company, okay. And then for example, I have created, or for me to help myself how I see this, I see this in three different steps. The first step is awareness. People want to know, right, what is happening, why this is important, how will this transform our company or our society as a whole. It's not
Mhm.
only finance; it's many other industries. And then this is the first phase, awareness. This is the one that most people are looking today to contribute, because people need to know. It's like supposing in the 50s, 70 years ago, people wanted to know what were these computers. Not even computers. Like people at the time, 70 years ago, they didn't know how a TV worked, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like the first TVs, in 70, 80 years ago. So, but let's say in the 70s, people wanted to know what were these computers, right? How they worked. And then people started to go to university to learn that, right? So here's more the same. In this moment, people are just getting aware of what is happening, how this will impact. And then you have deeper knowledge, which I call AEI. The second phase is the exploration. People start learning more about that. For example, downloaded a book on quantum computing, taking courses, and then, for example, hiring a professional to tell them what are these technical details that they have to know in order to take the first steps. And then finally is implementation. Implementation is really, at this point, is mostly for financial institutions that have the budget to get involved really in deep, hiring people, getting access to these quantum computers, uh, participating in events, and so on, right? So you have different phases.
So tell us
Right.
about this ecosystem. What are the banks and the asset managers experimenting with quantum already?
Yeah. So there are three things they do. Okay. I told you that, for example, more than three things, but main three subjects they 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 work on concerning quantum computation. This means the acceleration of processes. Okay? The first one is portfolio optimization. There's a lot of work on that. There's an algorithm which is the standard algorithm is called the QAOA, right? And this is the one I was describing before, that for each asset you need one qubit, but it's not enough because we need more qubits. These computers, something that I haven't mentioned, but these computers, quantum computers, are not perfect, right? So of course you need, for example, this is very quickly, this is called, you will hear that error correction. This means that what you get at the end of a computation is not what you expect, simply because the components of your quantum system are not perfect. And this also happened at the beginning of our digital era. Okay, you have currents, you have circuits, and then the computations and the elements were not perfect, so there was not a possible. Today the errors are so small, right? On my phone, for example, that is negligible. So one error will occur you need, like, I don't know how many, 10 times the age of the universe in order to have one error, right? So you can be sure that if you multiply 3 by 5 on your phone, you will always get 15. But current quantum computers, they are prone to errors because quantum systems are very delicate. So sometimes you do a computation and then you get something which is not what you expect. Okay, it's completely wrong. Let's say you put 3 times 5 and then you get 20. It's just an example, right? So these are errors, and these errors have to be corrected. Okay, so to correct errors, you need more qubits, which of course we don't have yet, right? So more qubits for each qubit that you have theoretically, maybe you need 1,000 more qubits just to correct that this qubit can make a mistake, while computing the computation you want. Okay, so this is one of the things. Is portfolio optimization. As I said, this is a research now, and it's expected to be something maybe practical in the next years. There's also machine learning, okay, and then there's quantum machine learning. Machine learning, of course, is used nowadays currently in finance, for example, for fraud detection, and then this is one of the applications. Also, big institutions such as JP Morgan, HSBC, they're working on is trying the algorithm, seeing if they have better results, to detect fraud, for example. Okay, and then there is another one is very common in finance, which is Monte Carlo, and then there's also a version of that which is quantum Monte Carlo, which the idea is to accelerate also these calculations by using in some steps some quantum processes in order to accelerate the whole thing. Then this is the first thing, okay, and then we also have, of course, banks are also investing a lot in quantum security today, developing what is called post-quantum cryptography, implementing that, and some quantum solutions. Let me just talk about this a minute. There are institutions today, regulators, they are trying to, agencies, they are trying to to advise companies to take into account this real threat that is posed by quantum computers, because there is one scenario that some actors they may be uh, harvesting is the term, okay, collecting data today to be decrypted later.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, you can, for example, collect today your password, for example, for your bank account, and they say, I will not use it today. Try to decrypt that because I don't have the quantum computer. But maybe you keep that for 10 years. You know this next time you will change the passwords, it's in 10 years. But that third actor can maybe in 5 years have a quantum computer and then decrypt your password. Okay, so
Mm.
this collect now decrypt later scenario is a possibility. So banks are trying are moving to implementation, and they are working on post quantum cryptography. This means
And
new, yeah,
sorry, just all of these you said in the past is what, like 5 to 10 years away from now? We're gonna have this chat
e-
GPT moment, but for quantum in the coming couple of years.
yeah. That day is called Q day. Okay, the day
Hmm.
someone will come and will say, hey, you know, this is so complicated because if the day someone will have it, right? They will not tell you. We have it. You will just notice that someone, you know, decrypted your data, right? But this is the thing is that people expect. Look at this. We have around 100 qubits. Okay, again, these quantum electric currents that I talk about. Okay, and then of course we need more complexity in order to solve problems and to decrypt, the standard encryption methods. Okay,
Hmm.
so we have 100 qubits to decrypt. For example, RSA. This means to break RSA, which is one of the encryption standards. You need a million, more than a million. Let's say 2 million, okay, qubits, and we only have 100. But these 2 million qubits are expected to be uh, with us in maybe 7, 10 years. This is according to the information we have, right? But who knows, right? I
Maybe
mean,
someone already has decoded it and they're using it, and we don't even know.
yes, this would be because if they have it and they haven't used it, if they have break and they haven't used it, is yes. I don't know. Some people they think yes. Some people they think Chinese, which are maybe the most advanced with the US, right? Have already decrypted because they have reached that level where they have millions of qubits and they can run this algorithm, which is called Shor's algorithm, to decrypt the the information that is encoded. That's why these agencies such as NIST in US, the National Institute of Standards and Technology, they are telling financial institutions, government officials, or offices to move to post-quantum cryptography. This is not quantum. These problems are problems, mathematical problems, which are more difficult than the ones being used today to encrypt information. I told you have this information.
Hmm.
You encrypt it. This means that you shuffle all the zeros and ones, right?
Yeah.
And then you give it one. You say, okay, try to do it. This will take you millions of years. Quantum computer may do it in minutes, right? So what they are saying is, okay, instead of doing that with this classical standard mathematics, let's use more complicated mathematics,
Yeah.
right? Because this first generation of computers will not be able to solve it. Right? So this is called post-quantum cryptography. And NIST, this
Hmm.
agency, is promoting all over the world the transition to these new encryption methods,
Got it.
which I think are four. Okay, and this is, do you see? This is like to do it now because this
Hmm.
is a real threat. If all this information gets in the wrong hands, this could be really a global, not only for
Mm.
the financial, international system, but for everything, for politics, your politics. This
Yeah.
is very, could be very dangerous.
And who are the leaders on the private sector? You talked about IBM and Google. Is it the biggest companies investing into quantum at the moment?
Yeah, there are many companies, and it's difficult to predict. And this
Hmm.
is so interesting. But I will just tell you, there are different technologies, and companies are developing their own technology. Most of the time, a company develops only one technology. I told you about these superconducting qubits. IBM and Google certainly at the top with some other ones, but they are certainly at the top. IBM, the same IBM that we used to hear in the 80s, but this is the same company. They are leading companies in quantum. So you have Google, you have IBM, you have Rigetti, also developing superconducting qubits. These companies, they are trying to build step by step, like 50 qubits, 100 qubits, 2,000 qubits, 10,000 qubits, 50,000 qubits, a million qubits, right? They're trying to go step by step to that point. But there are other companies, for example, one which is called PsiQuantum, that is developing photonics, this with light, okay? The ones that they encode quantum information in light. So they are not trying to build a quantum computer step by step, like a small one, a bigger one, a bigger one. They are trying really to build a big quantum computer, with a million qubits or millions of qubits in order to solve real practical problems when they will be ready. You see the difference, right? Because Google and IBM, they're solving problems which are useless for practical applications. These are just toy models, just to show that quantum computers are faster, right? This is called quantum supremacy, that they're faster than classical computers, right? A classical computer will never solve that, unless you give it, millions and millions of years, something like that. Okay, more than millions, 10 to the 35, years, something crazy. So these other companies, they are saying, no, we are not interested in solving toy models, okay, solving problems for nothing, right? We want really to create a computer with millions of qubits, means that we will be able to solve a real problem. For example, portfolio optimization we mentioned, right? Just in finance, or machine learning, right? Fraud detection. You see, instead of going step by step and then saying, okay, we will be reaching this, this goal in 5 years, they say, no, you will never see us building small computers, right? We will have a real computer. And this maybe is what other countries are doing also, and we don't know. Maybe they say we are almost in a million already, right? We only need a bit more, and then we can break RSA or the other. Yeah.
And something that you've also studied in the past is quantum philosophy, which is even more niche. I mean, we're getting close to the end of the conversation, but in a couple of words, what the heck is quantum philosophy?
Yeah. So philosophy of science. I studied philosophy at the same time, by the way, that I studied physics, and I was so passionate about physics and the philosophy of physics that I also studied philosophy. The idea is that different theories and different how to say portions of the world, have different descriptions, right? For example, when you say that a classical computer works with a classical physics, you need to be clear, what is the difference between this physics and then quantum physics, because quantum physics is the physics of the small things, right? And then when you try to apply your concepts, macroscopic concepts such as velocity, position, mass, these sort of things, to the world of the small things, you get confused. It's normal, and this is so common. People trying to explain quantum systems, quantum physics, with the things you see, right? For example, and this is the philosophy. This is the quantum, philosophy. It's the physics. It's the philosophy of quantum mechanics and how this is different from the philosophy of anything else, right? So when you say these words with a normal classical physics, right, and then you say because the current is this and the current is going this way, this is a transistor, all these things, right? When you try to explain quantum mechanics, it's completely different. There is no position, there is no velocity. It's just a mathematical description of what is happening. And then you need to be clear in that distinction. I know that this sometimes helps, but this sometimes creates more confusion and then propagates ideas which are false. Like, for example, saying an electron is here and there at the same time. It's wrong, right? Or when you have another concept is entanglement, which is also common and is fundamental for quantum computing. And then people will say, yeah, when you measure this one here on the other side of the universe, instantaneously tells the other one, the measurement, that's also wrong. So because people try to explain quantum physics with concepts which are not proper of that. It's the same in other areas of physics. For example, general relativity is Einstein's general relativity, and Newton's gravitational physics use different concepts. So sometimes you say, yeah, because the force of gravity in Einstein, it's not really. It's the space-time is curved. I think you have heard that, right? So space-time in Einstein is curved, right? So you cannot say about it's not force; it's different, right? So this is the philosophy of physics.
Okay. Interesting. Well, listen, thank you so much for all of this. Plenty of food for thought. I must admit, like, there's some parts where I'm going to have to listen to the conversation again because it's hard to follow, but it's incredibly interesting. I have no doubt this is going to change a lot of things over the coming years and decades, hopefully for the good. But we need to prepare for that. And probably that's my last question. What can a random advisor like myself do today to prepare for what's ahead? You already said don't try to understand the technical nitty gritty of it because you could spend a whole career trying to get there, and I'm probably not smart enough for that, by the way. But what can I do? What is within my reach so that I can prepare for what is lying ahead, really?
Yeah. So in order to get educated or to get involved, first try to find reliable sources, get connected to people. We have created, for example, a online community of finance professionals and quantum experts. We put them together in order to create this discussion. There are other ones also online. Reach to people. Don't try to do things by yourself because it can get very, very complicated and can be frustrating. I think the first step is just to get educated and find reliable sources that you can say, okay, these guys, they know what they are doing, right? And then avoid when it's too technical because honestly, I tell you, it's very difficult. Even for me, sometimes I listen to things, and I say, okay, I take my tablet, and I say, let me take some notes because that, I don't know. Okay, so
well,
it's also
you heard Oswaldo. I mean, join communities, educate yourself. Oswaldo has a community where they discuss precisely about this quantum computing and finance. So if you're interested on the topic, please feel free to reach out.
Yeah, last thing is, I have written a few ebooks, a couple of ebooks. You can find on my LinkedIn page, but there is another one that I just re-edited. I sell, but I will give you to your audience for free. If they get in touch with you, or I will give you a link so they can download it for free.
Oh, okay. Wow. Thank you so much. That's incredibly generous. But yeah, I was actually going to mention that you've also written a few books on the topic.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for that kind offering. And if any of you want to learn a little bit more about that, please reach out probably to Oswaldo directly. He's an incredibly open and nice person, as you've probably gathered from this conversation. And he's on a mission to try to bring these two worlds together: quantum mechanics and computing and finance. So pretty niche, but very interesting topic. And he's always eager to talk about it. So Oswaldo, I hope some people reach out. And more importantly, I wanted to thank you for taking the time, for explaining all of this stuff to me for the second time also. I find the topic incredibly interesting. I'm going to make sure I read your ebook, that's for sure. And again, thank you for coming to the Blunt Dollar, and I'm excited to see what you come ahead with your community and yourself over the coming years. The Blunt Dollar is written, produced, hosted, and edited by me, Ignacio Ramirez. Everything you hear, concept, script, sound design, and production comes straight from my desk, and occasionally my kitchen table. Thank you so much for listening, and join me in the next episode of The Blunt Dollar for more raw, honest finance conversations.